So we've been getting into those subconscious triggers. Smells, music, colors, they all make a difference. This time let's talk about symbols and images that trigger instant feelings, both good and bad. It could be a picture, it could be a gesture. Most influence is below the radar, invisible to the radar. That's what you're looking for. Let's do it.
Maximize your influence. Kurt Mortensen is the author of Persuasion IQ, Laws of Charisma, and the best-selling book, Maximum Influence.
Welcome back to Maximize Your Influence. Kurt Mortensen here. This is podcast 554. As you know, we take that deep dive into persuasion, motivation, influence, mindset, that self-persuasion, negotiation, charisma, those skills. Number one, we should have learned in school, and number two, make the big difference in your success, your income, your promotions, you name it. That's why we're here. Hope you have an incredible week achieving your goals, making a difference, becoming more persuasive and influential. That is our goal. So as we get into symbols, images, get even gestures, it's interesting. Some of these things can mean different things to different people, to different cultures. For example, the thumbs up in the United States, positive thing. But in the parts of the Middle East, especially like places like Iran or West Africa, it's rude. It's very similar to the middle finger. There's another gesture, image that could trigger instant feelings. The okay sign, we see that in Western cultures, but we know in many parts of Latin America, even Germany, that's a vulgar insult. That's calling somebody a name, and your day might not end well. A lot of cultures point with the index finger, but there are a lot of Asian and African cultures that pointing directly at the person with your index fingers, rude, inconsiderate, and disrespectful. People consider that very aggressive. And then showing the bottom of your feet's a big insult. Many Arab, Hindu, and Buddhist countries, the soles of your feet are considered highly offensive. The lowest part of the body, the shoe that's stepping in things. So when you show it to someone, it's an insult. I have to be very careful when I go to the Middle East. You know, you cross your legs. That's what you do. That's very offensive and very insulting. I don't remember this or not. I don't know which President Bush it was. Anyway, they're in the Middle East and someone threw a shoe at him. He ducked, but that was highly insulting. Throwing a shoe at a person is highly insulting. So we can interpret things in different ways. So that's what we're going to get into today. But before we do, let's get into our persuasion. Is it blunder? Ninja? Let's call it a blinja. You decide on this one. This one's interesting.
Don't.
If you've been listening to the news, Delta Airlines had a crash. This plane was landing. I believe it was the right side landing gear collapsed. Anyway, that made the plane kind of dip to one side, which the airlift on the other wing flipped it over and it landed upside down, right? You've probably seen this in the news. But what's amazing, and you have to decide, is this good, bad, a blunder, a ninja, in the middle, a blinja? So Delta just offered everybody on that plane, everyone survived, $30,000. No strings attached. Really? They can still sue? Is this an admission of guilt? Is it a waste of money when they can still sue? Why would they do that? There's a couple reasons. You have to decide. Again, is it an admission of guilt, waste of money? They're still going to sue. But it is a calculated legal and PR strategy. So first of all, it's a legal strategy. When people are given a significant amount up front, passengers usually feel less inclined to sue. Doesn't guarantee it, but less inclined. In fact, everyone knows how expensive lawsuits are. They can drag on for years. There's no guarantee, but it does discourage lawsuits. All right, no guarantee, but discourages. In reality, it's preemptive damage control. It shows empathy. It shows other people in the market, hey, we're sorry, we care. There's no strings attached. We're compassionate. We're proactive. So for the people who weren't on the plane, that's good PR, public relations. It can calm any public outrage, reduce any media backlash, and it can restore public confidence a lot faster. Another thing to consider, too, when you think about these airlines, they're insured for accidents like this. And so they probably got compensated. They passed that along, and that can cover these payments. Because they could be suffering financially, emotionally, PTSD. Because think about landing and then flipping over. That's pretty traumatic. So it builds a little goodwill, maybe increased loyalty. And others could be impressed how Delta handled this accident. If they did something like it's not our fault, it was the landing gear, it was the manufacturer, it was the weather, it was the pilot. No, you take ownership, you do it. So, was this a blunder? It's going to cost them a lot more. Did it save them money? Was it good? Was it a good strategy legally? Was it good PR for those who were on the plane? You have to decide, blunder, ninja, or in between, a blinja. Which brings us to our geeky Scarly article. So this comes from the Journal of Experimental Psychology, University of Texas at Austin, University of Chicago, and run by Dr. Austin McCombs. He's a professor of marketing, and the title is Random Acts of Kindness Make a Bigger Splash Than Expected. I think we all know that being kind, service, donating is something that just makes us feel good. But we're not very good at estimating how good it's really going to make us feel. See, acts of kindness such as giving a friend a ride, bringing food to a sick family member, pulling over and helping somebody that's homeless. But again, we underestimate how good these actions make us feel. See, when we give, we tend to focus on the object that we're providing or the action that we're performing. That's the givers. Receivers concentrate on the feelings of warmth that the act of kindness has created. So what this means is the givers miscalibrate their expectations, and that can be a barrier to performing more pro-social behavior such as helping, sharing, and donating. So they did these experiments. They went to a park in Chicago, and the participants could choose whether to give away a hot cup of coffee or keep it for themselves. And 75% agreed to give it away. So the recipients reported their mood, and the performers indicated how they thought recipients felt after getting the drink. You see, they underestimated the significance of the act. They estimate how good they would feel, how good the person they gave it to would feel, and they were way off base. People get that being kind to people makes them feel good. What we don't get is how good it really makes others feel. So we're underestimating how good it makes us feel and how good it's going to make them feel. Bottom line, it turns out generosity can be contagious. We underestimate how good it's going to make us feel and them feel. Give more, help more, serve more. That's what it's all about. You can decrease depression. You can be happier. We always knew it does a lot for us, but it also helps them in the process. Which brings us to a listener email.
Oh boy!
This one's from Pedro from Mexico. It says, Kurt, I love the last couple of podcasts. Do appreciate it. I am persuading with power. Love it. Since you've been talking about subconscious triggers, talk to me about images and symbols and how I can use them to enhance the sales process. All right, let's talk about it. We'll talk about enhancing and maybe even destroying the sales process. If you want to see the past episodes, go to maximizeyourinfluence.com. Last couple episodes, we talked about music and sounds. We talked about color. In podcast 531, talked about smells. So all the links for the geeky article, everything we're talking about, go to maximizeyourinfluence.com. Check out your email. There you can take your free Persuasion IQ assessment, find out about advanced trainings, check out the archives and everything that we are up to. So let's get into these symbols. We do live in a very symbolic world. And what's interesting, just like colors and smells, symbols bypass our thoughts and our logic, and they affect our mood, our perceptions, our behaviors, our feelings. Take gold, for example. That's a symbol. It's not even one of the world's most precious metals, not even close. But gold has become a symbol of wealth and success. But again, there's other more precious metals. But gold is a symbol of success and wealth. Symbols could also help us understand and feel a message without actually having to undergo the experience. I'll give you an example here. Skull and crossbones. What does that tell you? When you see skull and crossbones on a bottle, we don't have to taste it, get sick, die. We just know that it's poison and it'll be a fatal experience. The symbol of a police car. When you ever stepped on the brakes when you saw a police car, that symbol, you weren't even speeding, but that just kind of happens, that automatic braking response. So let me go through some symbols and just pay attention to your inner feelings, memories, attitudes. Maybe you might recall some experiences. There are religious symbols like the crucifix. There are freedom symbols like the Statue of Liberty, symbol of the World Trade Center, American flag, swastika, a military uniform, the Olympic symbol, a wedding dress, a Christmas tree, can all trigger different things. Those are symbols. See, flag could trigger different symbols. They change over time. Some might see the flag and get happy and patriotic and freedom. Others might see a flag of their country and think of all the problems and challenges they're having. That could go either way. So when you're trying to mold attitudes, it's useful to know how symbols shape your audience. We see it in marketing and advertising. For example, the McDonald's arches, the golden arches. Did you know the average child can recognize those arches before they're 20 months old? Talk about incredible marketing. So think about it. Do you need symbols of freedom, symbols of success? Are you showing symbols of poverty? Find and use the symbols you need to create to trigger the right feelings. And we could go on and talk about emojis. That's a symbol. They can trigger instant feelings. They can help hurt sales. Now, if you don't know the person, you're just meeting, I wouldn't use an emoji. In fact, I'd rarely use it in a business setting. We use them all the time, friend to friend, family to family. But you have to understand, images, symbols, emojis are like emotional shortcuts for our brain. We don't have to think about it. We just feel that way. We know what the thumbs up means. So on the emojis, smiling face, smiling eyes triggers a feeling. Face with tears of joy, a sparkling heart, a party popper. Any of those can trigger good feelings. But if there's a pouting face, a crying face, a skull, an angry face, they even have those nauseated faces or other things we didn't even talk about can trigger different feelings. So what are some symbols and images that can trigger good feelings and let's say some bad ones? The color blue, we talked about that a few weeks ago on the podcast. It's one of the most trustworthy colors. Banks, PayPal, Facebook, American Express use a lot of blue because blue can signal trust, reliability. If you want people to feel safe, little blue can go a long way. Wearing blue can go a long way. Then we talked about the smiling emoji. What about your face? Are you smiling? Very contagious. A smile in retail increases sales 20%. Don't be me. I suffer from RBF. Look it up if you don't know what it is. I'm working on it. But another study showed that a smiling person in an ad makes people 70% more likely to feel positive about the product. Think about Coke, Pepsi, even beer. Always showing people having fun, they're full of joy, they're drinking, they're happy. Happiness persuades. Then there's the symbol of a heart. It's not just for Valentine's Day, if you know what that is, right? That's February 14th, the day of love and hearts. But a heart symbol triggers warmth, care, positive emotions. That's why if you look at a dating app or a nonprofit organization or even customer service reviews, they use hearts to boost engagement. Another interesting one, green check marks. That just indicates approval and success. Again, a simple check mark, a green check mark, people feel good because it signals success, completion. It ended with a positive outcome. That's why on the internet, when you go to a checkout page, a lot of times you'll see a green check mark. That just confirms the purchase and it reassures customers that they made the right decision. Arrows pointing forward. We're making progress. We're getting excited. We're moving forward. Nike does this, FedEx, Amazon uses forward-pointing arrows. It just tells the brain we're moving ahead. We're making progress, and it gets people more excited to take action. Whether it's signing up for something, enrolling for a newsletter, or the Buy Now button. Now, on the flip side, we know with any association trigger, there's a negative side. Images, symbols, pictures. We've talked about gestures that can trigger bad feelings. Color red can mean danger, urgency, something's wrong. Think about your papers from school, all the red marks, the circles, all the things you did wrong, all the answers you missed. That's red. So if your website's plastered with red, it'll grab attention, but it could make customers feel anxious rather than motivated to buy. Something's wrong. Something could be wrong. We've talked about smiling faces, your frowny face. When you got the RBF on, you're frowning. That can trigger distrust, discomfort, and triggers negative emotions. So like we talked about, make sure the people in your ad on your website have a smile. An interesting one is broken chains or cracks. So if your ad or website shows a broken chain, a shattered phone screen, cracks in a foundation, people associate that with failure, unreliability. That's not good for your brand, not good for your website. It doesn't inspire confidence. Isn't that interesting? A crack, a broken chain, a shattered phone screen, all those things could trigger distrust. unreliability, instability, this product probably doesn't work. Another thing to be careful of is dark and empty spaces. That could trigger loneliness or even fear. An example, that would be a website with too much black, a lot of shadows in the images, just dark. Can make people feel uneasy, that dark alley. That's why hospitals avoid dark. They're well lit, like pharmacies, well lit. That triggers trust. We like it bright. We like visuals that convey warmness and trust. Even shadows on a picture, like a portrait, can trigger distrust. If part of your face is darker on the other side, that's why lighting is so important. And let me add, what about the image of your face? On your social media, on your LinkedIn, on your website, on your business card, on a billboard, on a bus bench. Are you sure you want that? You can't tell. You're too close to it. Don't ask your mom. They'll probably say, "Oh, that's beautiful, honey." No, you need to get strangers to say, "Hey, don't use that picture. Use this picture." We know that when someone applies for a job, they go to your social media page. They see the pictures you post. Be careful. We've all been driving down the highway, the freeway, and you see a billboard of, say, a real estate agent. You're like, there's no way I would ever work with that person. You haven't even met them. You don't know how good or bad they are. You don't know if they're trustworthy or not. You judge. So be very careful. That's an image. That's a photo. Be careful of the things you put on your website and the emotion that it triggers. Have strangers look at it. Have them pick it. There's actually a website called photofeeler.com. I'll put that in the links at Maximize Your Influence, that you could have strangers analyze your picture on how confident you look, how authentic you look, how smart, trustworthy, attractive you are. Have strangers do that and then use the picture that works the best. That's what you need to do. Just because you think it looks good or you cut it out of a wedding picture or whatever it is, that's an image, that's a symbol, that's going to trigger feelings, trust, distrust, critical for your ability to persuade and influence. Now, on a side note here, when you talk about this association, these subconscious triggers, I call it the law of association and maximum influence. You can think about affiliation. See, great persuaders want you to affiliate their company with positive images, feelings, and attitudes. Our surroundings and environment trigger feelings, and we transfer those feelings to those we are with. For example, one frequently used technique is to take someone to lunch. Food can also generate subconscious triggers. And that's assuming, and I know you shouldn't do that, if the food and company are good. The studies show that subjects like the people better when they're eating. Food gives us good feelings and a better attitude. The idea is to link something positive in the environment with your message. For example, a good game of golf, a weekend at the beach, NFL tickets, or an exotic cruise would all typically build positive associations and feelings in your prospects. Have you ever noticed that after a big victory, sweatshirts with the university logo was seen all over the place? We want to be associated with winners. In fact, a study showed that when a university football team won, more students would wear that college's sweatshirt the next week. The bigger the victory, the more college sweatshirts would become visible. When you bring positive stimuli into a situation, you are associated with that pleasant feeling you have created. So to have a more positive affiliation, think about your website, your advertising, your images, and the symbols that you surround yourself with. So make pictures, symbols, images, gestures work for you. The middle finger, folded arms can all trigger different feelings. Open gestures we know are more trustworthy. So look at those things. So by understanding the psychology behind these symbols and images, pictures and gestures, you could trigger the right emotions in your audience. Whether they're coming to your website, looking at an ad, looking at your product or service, watching you in a presentation, remember those images, having a smiling face, watching your emojis, green check marks, make all the difference in the world. So use the power of symbols and images to boost yourself, boost your brand, and boost your sales. So there you have it, another edition of Maximize Your Influence. Thanks for being here. Tell your family and friends about the podcast. You can find us at MaximizeYourInfluence.com, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on YouTube. We're going to continue on with the lifetime membership of InfluenceUniversity.com. There's a free area there that you could subscribe to, but if you want all the meat, the 52-week program, the persuasion software, coaching session with me. The link's in your email on the website, or go to maximizeyourinfluence.com/special. Lifetime membership, 90% off. Take something that you learned today, apply it, use it, become more influential, a better negotiator, a better student of human nature. You'll become more charismatic, and you'll be able to persuade with power.